guys, gals, and non-binary pals, and welcome back to another video. So if you haven't watched the video I posted last week, this month I'm doing a month's worth of Pride Month related videos. And in this video, I'm going to be kind of just doing a queer history lesson. So I'm going to be drawing some influential gay figures throughout history who have been erased in most history classes, and a lot of you probably haven't heard of despite most of my audience being queer. So I just want to raise some awareness and kind of show that a lot of these figures have been erased from history. And if you are interested in stuff like this, you should go do some more research, because we really don't know a lot about our history. We're not taught a lot about it. And it's really important to know who made our rights possible, and know that there are people who are successful who are gay, trans, etc. Also, make sure to subscribe so you can check out all the videos that are coming out this month. There's gonna be 2 more gay related videos coming up, so make sure you watch those. And on with the video. So, starting off, we have one of my favorite gay rights figures, mainly because I've written 2 speeches about him. Okay, well, I did 1 speech about him, and then I also did an English project about him. So yeah, I know quite a bit about him at this point, and this is Harvey Milk, who was the first, elected gay official. So I literally have my speech from 7th grade up here that I'm reading. It's all in bullet points. Alright, so Harvey Milk was born in the 1930s, and he used to find activists crazy before eventually he moved to San Francisco in 1972. So 1972, he moved to San Francisco, to Castro Street to be specific, and changed his mind. He also opened up a camera shop there, I'm fairly sure, but it's not written in this speech. He started getting into politics then, and led 2 unsuccessful campaigns until he was elected in 1977 as the city supervisor, and he was the first openly gay man to be elected for anything in the US. And he was in office for 11 months. And while in there, he defeated Proposition 6, which, if you don't know that, it was a proposition that banned gay and lesbian people from working in California schools. So during his 11 months as city supervisor, he had already defeated that proposition and made it legal for queer teachers to teach. However, during this time, there was also a man named Dan White elected. And he was kind of the opposite of Harvey Milk in his opinions of everything. And after Milk was elected, he left his post. And then he asked to return to it later and got rejected. So then White went to City Hall and shot Milk and the mayor. Then in court, he used a defense which is now infamous. It's called the Twinkie defense. He said that he had a ton of Twinkies, and the sugar was acting like a drug and messing with his brain, so he couldn't use proper rational thinking. And it worked. The Twinkie defense worked. So he only got 2 voluntary cases of manslaughter. Not murder, just voluntary manslaughter. So after this, riots broke out, because obviously this was super unfair. Listen, I've had some moments where I eat way too much sugar, and I haven't killed anyone. So people were rioting, they're super mad. So overall, he's a big historical gay rights martyr. And May 22nd is apparently Harvey Milk Day. That just recently passed, so, y'all will have to remember that for next year. There's a street named after him, an opera, and a movie about him. I think it's just called Milk. And he did a lot for changing the public's view of LGBTQ+ individuals. And that's all I wrote in my little speech there. There's a couple other things I want to add though. He was the one who originally commissioned for the gay pride flag to be made. He didn't design it, but he commissioned the design. But yeah, big gay rights figure. Also known for like being really open about his sexuality, which wasn't very popular at the time. But he was really open about trying to get LGBTQ rights and did a lot for the community, even if he only spent 11 months in office due to his assassination. You know, he made a huge step forward in gay rights and all that. So yeah, a big figure there. So next we're going to be moving on to a person named Sylvia Rivera. And I haven't done like 5 projects on her. So I'm gonna, if I remember, put my sources down in the description below. But most of what I'm saying is gonna come from specific articles, much less knowledgeable about these people. Okay, so Sylvia Rivera was born in New York City in 1951 and was assigned male at birth. And as a kid, she had a really difficult life. Her father left, and then her mom committed suicide when Rivera was 3 years old. Then she was raised by her grandma, where she started like experimenting with more feminine presentation. And then she got beaten for that and like bullied by all the kids. So yeah, having a fun life. And then she ran away at 11. Then in 1963, so at this point she is, let me do math, 12. She met Marsha P. Johnson, who is also an activist for gay rights and also for civil rights movement and race equality during the time. They're a self-identified drag queen. So yeah, Sylvia met Marsha P. Johnson, and who also went through like a lot of struggles for being queer in the 60s and whatnot. So Johnson was like almost a mother to Rivera. And in 1969, which some of you, if you know your gay history well, that year might stand out to you, both of them were part of the Stonewall riots, which, oh god, if you don't know the Stonewall riots, that shows how much the school system has failed us, because it's one of the most like famous points of like trying to get gay rights. It was one of like the first big movements, though stuff had obviously been going on before. Pretty much at this bar, the Stonewall Inn, which was notorious for like being a gay bar pretty much, some police raided it, and instead of taking it, the people fought back. Like people were throwing Molotov cocktails and like fighting the police, and they wouldn't leave the bar. And so as a 17-year-old, Sylvia was there and was there for 6 nights. And after this, it kind of like, inspired her, like seeing all this go down. So after that, they led a series of protests against the raid. The Stonewall riots are also well known because they kind of kicked off the whole Pride Parade tradition. And in Pride Parades and in the community, in like the LGBTQ plus community at the time, trans people were also commonly excluded from gay people because, like, still to this day, there's a lot of infighting between certain groups about who's allowed and still a lot of discrimination. But especially back then, like, gay people saw trans people as, like, just gay people in denial or, like, just giving them a bad name. So, like, they were also excluded from this community. So that was another thing that Rivera was really passionate about, was getting trans people a voice inside the queer community. So during a pride parade in 1973, despite not being allowed to actually like talk at the parade, she butt in anyway and stole a microphone and kind of pointed out to everyone how big trans people are to the movement. And like, trans people have always been helping gay people achieve their rights and fighting for gay people, but gay people hadn't really been fighting for trans rights or trans people either. So yeah, there's a lot of fighting at this time between the community. So then Rivera also helped start an organization called STAR, which stands for Street Transvestite Action Revolutionaries, which provided housing for any transgender people facing homelessness, and also was a space to like organize activism for the trans community. And this was in 1971. She still had a rough life as an adult though. She still had problems with homelessness and substance abuse and generally didn't have very good mental health. But eventually she went to a hospital which helped her, and then she left New York City for a bit until she returned after Marsha P. Johnson died. Once she returned, she started getting back into activism for transgender individuals. She started another house similar to the Star House called the Transy House, and throughout the rest of her life, she continued running the Transy House and continued promoting activism for transgender individuals until eventually she died of liver cancer in 2002. So overall, Sylvia Rivera, big in fighting for trans rights. Also on this list, I just want to point out, she is the only not white man, even when trying to like promote a diverse history. It's important to remember that like even the history that a lot of us get taught about like queer history, even that's like incredibly whitewashed and sexist. And it's important to remember that like just as queer individuals have been put on the back burner, trans people and women and people of color in the community have been put on the back burner, and haven't really been, and haven't been embraced as much as the rest of us. So it's important to celebrate them as well and recognize them. And with that, we have our final person, and we're going to be talking about Alan Turing. Now, I'm sure a lot of you have probably heard about him, because he's probably one of the most famous, not talked about pieces of history, if that makes sense. Because in 2014, something like that, a movie called The Imitation Game came out, which is kind of about him and his story. So a lot of people learned about him from this movie, but he's by far, while not like a gay activist like most of the other people on this list, he's definitely one of the most influential gay figures in history, and you're about to see why. So Alan Turing is a British mathematician and logician. Ooh, that's a fancy word. And he's done a lot of work for a lot of different scientific studies like mathematics, cryptanalysis, philosophy, and computer science is a big one. He's done a couple, I don't want to say smaller, but less well-known things. Pretty much, he did a lot of work in the mathematical community early on, but his more well-known work comes during World War II. So pretty much the German military had this code that all of their like messages were in, called the Enigma code, and people had tried cracking it and it was difficult, and all their messages were written in this code. So if they could break the code, they could pretty much figure out most of like the Germans' plans. So some people had figured out kind of how the code had worked. So for about 2 years, they had a system for deciphering the code, but eventually there were some changes made that made that system useless. So Turing and some other people designed a code-breaking machine to try and decipher the Enigma code again. And for the rest of World War II, this machine worked. Some people estimate that the war, World War II, would have been like potentially 4 years longer and killed, I think, 24 million more people. Yeah, so his work really helped push along World War II and push along the field of computer science. And we don't really hear about him in school because he was gay. Yeah, so he was arrested for being found as gay, and not long afterwards, he was found dead, poisoned by cyanide. So honestly, in recent years, like, a lot of people have been fighting for more recognition of Turing. So, like, his official arrest got pardoned even though he's dead. So it doesn't really do much good. And I think I have to double check this one. He's now on the new 20-pound bills. Oh, 50-pound bills, sorry. Yeah, so now he's on the 50-pound bills to try and recognize them. They're really trying to like retroactively make up for their mistakes. But yeah, those are just a couple of important gay figures that you probably haven't heard about. If you've heard about all these people, then good for you. Doing your research, learning more. Okay, somehow the intro got lost to time, so me in the future here. If you did like this video, make sure to like and subscribe. Also comment down below any interesting historical queer figures that you might know about. And also in the description below are all my social media, which you should go follow. And I will see you all next